I don't know if you've taken a good look around the room, if you watch as people come in, but there are lots of beautiful, successful, happy people in here. Have you noticed? I mean, we sit here, I mean, it's true all over Buckhead, right? But on Sunday, it's even exaggerated because we dress up and bring our very best selves to worship. And we sit here looking at everybody else walk in. Every family seems to carry some measure of the ideal that the rest of us seem to be lacking. And we look as folks come in. Look at her and her handsome husband and her perfect 2.5 children. Look, his wife is always so pleasant. She's always upbeat. She's never in a bad mood. Oh, how I wish. I heard they're building onto their place at the lake. Must be nice. She's a size 4. Her children are well behaved, and her son's shirt is always tucked in, and I hate her. I mean, some mornings it just looks like every family just skipped in here from their beautiful Buckhead home that doesn't need any repairs and remains clean. And they got up this morning and turned on the radio, and it played zippity-doo-dah, zippity-ay. My, oh my, what a wonderful day. Plenty of sunshine headed my way. And then they whistled as they took their clothes out of the dry cleaner bags this morning. Dressed for church, they got in their big clean sedan, and the children asked if they could recite the memory verses they had memorized. And then we get in here, and there's me, and my life, and my stuff, and it doesn't seem fair. It can feel like everybody else is singing Disney tunes while you think you are the only one singing the blues. As though Keb Mo and Etta James and Johnny Lee Hooker are playing the soundtrack of your life. Behind at work, fight at home, bills piled up, unemployed, underemployed, waiting for biopsy results, child wandering toward danger, lack of affection from the one you pledged to love, and here comes another perfect family, and I can't stand it. Some days it feels like you are the only one who sings the blues. And while their radio is playing zippity-doo-dah, your radio is playing the Allman Brothers. Sometimes I feel like I've been tied to the whipping post. Tied to the whipping post. Good Lord, I feel like I'm dying. By the way, and you know this already, our congregation is not divided between those who sing praise choruses and those who sing the blues. Everybody in the room is broken and beautiful. We all know sunshine and rain. It is the experience of every person, every Christian, that sometimes it's just hard to come into the sanctuary and sing praise. Because sometimes it feels like we come in here and the only song we've got to sing is the blues. Last Wednesday night, week ago Wednesday night, just before Wednesday night supper, I got a phone call that one of my dearest friends had been rushed to Emory Hospital. He had thrown a blood clot, pulmonary embolism. He was fighting for his life. I had a presentation to make here at 6 o'clock. I made it through the meal and faked it like we do. Made chit-chat around the table. Made my presentation at 6 o'clock, turned it over to Charles, and raced over to Emory University while my friend sat in ICU fighting for his life. The breathing tube came out Thursday. There is reason for promise. But some Sundays you can't sing praise choruses, sometimes we walk in here and sing the blues. So how are we supposed to handle that when we walk into worship? How do we worship when all we feel is pain? Well, there's this large, beautiful collection of biblical worship material that we mostly ignore. It's the literature of lament, the writings of grief and cry, the parts of the Bible that are mostly skimmed, mostly left unread. But as many as 67 of our 150 psalms are psalms of lament. Today I'm preaching from the book of Lamentations, which you probably hadn't heard a lot of preaching from in your life. I think it's because we're convinced that we're supposed to bring our best happy self to worship and not our truest authentic self to worship. And the lament writings of Scripture can give us the great gift of modeling for us that grief can be an act of worship. Mourning can and should be brought to the altar of God. When we come to church feeling broken, we ought to be able to sing the blues. The book of Lamentations was written by the blues artists of ancient Israel. It should probably be read to the accompaniment of a sliding steel guitar because they were feeling the blues. The destruction of Jerusalem in the year 587 BC was the ancient equivalent to our 9/11. The Babylonian army stomped into the holy city with terror and torment. They killed and flattened. Even Solomon's grand temple built to the glory of God was crumbled into ash. Their city was defeated. Their temple was destroyed. Their hopes were crushed. How do you enter worship next? How do you walk into the worship space when all you feel is pain? Well, you write honest prayers. You sing the blues. How lonely sits the city that once was full of people. How like a widow she has become, she that was great among the nations, she that was a princess among the provinces has become a vassal. You write and sing the blues. This past March, I went and heard a lecture by Otis Moss III. And his lecture was entitled, Blues Sensibility and Blue Note Preaching. That's the truth. That was the title of his lecture. Dr. Moss had done his doctoral work on the blues, born out of his own African-American tradition, and the laments of Holy Scripture. And he is such a great lecturer and preacher. He is a wordsmith. I found myself jotting more quotes down than actual notes on his lecture. He was talking about the ineffective pulpit in the United States. He called it preaching capitalism in drag. It's a great line. He said, the world is living stormy Monday and the church is preaching happy Sunday. I'm writing all over the margins. But the line that I underlined, the line I wanted to follow up with was this one. We can have tragedy without despair. That line just sounded so rich with truth that I started digging around. I wanted to find examples. I wanted to find places of tragedy without despair. If you were listening when Kelly read Psalm 27, a psalm of lament, it started in tragedy. Your face, Lord, do I seek. Do not hide your face from me. Do not run your servant away in anger. Do not cast me off. Do not forsake me. But it concludes in hope. I believe that I shall see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. Wait for the Lord. Be strong. Let your heart take courage. Wait for the Lord. If you still have your worship bulletin, you might want to look again at Psalm 13. You see how it starts in anguish. How long, how long? But I trusted. Tragedy does not have to end in despair. There is this honest, flailing lament, but underneath is the trust of everlasting love. Kind of like the 12-year-old girl who yells at her mom, slams the bedroom door, but deep, deep below that pain is this solid assurance that her parents love her. And after the book of Lamentations begins with these cries of loss and grief and anger, it also gives way to hope. Our text today is the lament of chapter 1, but by chapter 3, the tone has changed, even in the book of Lamentations. Chapter 3 says, "The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. The Lord is my portion, says my soul. Therefore I will hope in him." Now we need to be careful at this point, because lament does not resolve to hope in some kind of formula. It doesn't just get there in 1 hour of worship, for instance. It doesn't operate like a silly 30-minute sitcom that completely satisfies all the tension in 30 minutes before the toothpaste commercial and the next episode of Big Bang Theory. It's just not that clean. We have no idea how long it took the psalmist to move from "do not hide your face from me" to "let your heart take courage, wait for the Lord." This isn't like the poster that says, "If life gives you lemons, make lemonade." Cheer up, something good's going to happen to you today. That's not what this is. Sometimes life just keeps giving lemons. Sometimes we need to just keep singing the blues, and it is okay to sing the blues for a while. It is okay, not just okay. It is okay to sing the blues in worship. How lonely sits the city that once was full of people. I'm angry. Who knows how long they sang that dirge? Who knows? Serious tragedy doesn't just hurry over to the closet and put on tap shoes. Sometimes it lasts a while. But the biblical witness does finally break forth with a new song. "The Lord is my portion, says my soul, therefore I will hope in him." And there is a reason. There is a reason we bring all of that honesty into worship. This book, Lamentations, was used in corporate worship. This is a worship guide for the people of God, and there is a reason we lament together. Because some of us this day came into the room singing the blues. And we do not need to be told to get over it. We do not need to be cheered up. We do not need a bookmark with a clever, cheery saying on it. We need to grieve. We need to weep. We need to mourn what we have lost. We need to cry out and shake our fist and be given the space to wail. But we do this in a community of people who hold us, who remind us that the Psalms of lament eventually turn to praise. We hear each other's stories of answered prayers, of being sustained by the community of faith, of being held by the embrace of God. We sit in Sunday school. We listen to friends whose stormy Monday did give way to a happy Sunday. We draw hope from Scripture. We draw hope from each other. We draw the hope that the blues are not the last song we will sing. As Dr. Moss said in that lecture, Jesus hung up on the cross and transformed an execution into a celebration. And if that is the central event of our faith, that we worship a God who transforms death into resurrection, then we can trust that tragedy does not have to end in despair. Hold on. The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. Tragedy does not have to end in despair. In that same lecture, Dr. Moss told a beautiful story about his little 6-year-old girl. He said it became the symbol for him of the whole book and all of his study. First of all, you need to know that Dr. Moss is pastor of a large, mostly black congregation in Chicago. And during a time of severe racial unrest, he was getting multiple death threats. The city's violence was way high. He was getting as many as 100 calls a week saying, we're going to kill you, we're going to bomb your church. It was a truly frightening time. He was trying to protect his family from the fear he was feeling. One night they were asleep. He and his wife were in one bed, his 6-year-old daughter in another room. They were sound asleep. He said he was kind of asleep, and then there was this noise that woke his wife and startled him. There was something downstairs. She nudged him and she said, you need to go take a look at that. He said, I'm a good preacher. According to the Bible, I took my rod and my staff to comfort me. Said it was made in Louisville. Had Slugger on the... Said he went downstairs, he heard the noise again, so before he confronted the noise, he said he wanted to run back upstairs and make sure his 6-year-old daughter was okay, that she was asleep, that she was missing this. Walked into her room, into the darkness, no lights were on. She was out of the bed, fully awake and dancing in her room. She's spinning around in the room saying, look at me, Daddy, look at me. Now he's scared to death. He said, Michaela, you have got to go back to bed. It is 3 o'clock in the morning. Get back in bed. She said, no, Daddy, no, look at me, look at me. And she's spinning around. Barrettes are flying. She's spinning back and forth. Her pigtails are moving around. He starts to lose his temper. He starts to just really fuss at her. And he said at that moment, he heard the voice of God say to him, look at your daughter. She is dancing in the dark. The darkness is all around her, but not in her. She is dancing in the dark. We sing the blues because there's darkness around us. But it's only despair when the darkness gets in us. Which is why we keep gathering. We keep praying, we keep dancing, we keep grieving, we keep mourning, we keep shouting, we keep holding each other until morning breaks through, until darkness gives way to light. We keep coming together until we can sing something other than the blues. The God who teaches you to sing is inviting you now to respond to whatever voice of love you are hearing, to say yes to God's call. And if it's a decision you would like to make public to this congregation, I'll be down front to receive and delight with you. Let's stand and sing together.